Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Wookieecast. Today we're here with Rodney Barnes, the author of several Star Wars comic book miniseries. Thank you so much for sitting down with us today.
Thank you for talking to me.
I'd love to get into a little bit of how you first got introduced to Star Wars as a franchise.
When I was a kid, I saw the first movie, like way back when, I think 1977. I stood in line with a bunch of my friends, and that was my introduction to the world of Star Wars.
Do you have any fond memories of going to the theaters with friends? Did you see all of them in theaters probably when they came out?
I did, and it was a way different experience than today when you can push a button and seemingly get a TV show, or there's a movie around every corner, or there's something where you can get your Star Wars fix. Back then, you had to wait every 3 years, or you had to wait a while in order to get Star Wars. So it was great waiting in a way. I kind of, that's the old man in me coming out. It was great waiting for the next installment and reading fan magazines and that type of thing, hoping that you get a little bit of this or a little bit of that. Way different world than today.
Did you have any favorite characters growing up that resonated with you?
Loved Han Solo. He was probably the most relatable because it was almost like a Western gunslinger in a way. Um, Loved Vader. Vader was my guy. Something about the menace and the darkness of Vader. Those were my two. Those were my two.
How did you first get into writing comic books professionally?
I've loved comic books my entire life. When I was a kid, my mother was a school teacher, and she would do her lesson plans at the public library, and I knew where the comic books were. So we're talking 5, 6 years old. And I would always gravitate towards comic books. So when I started to write television, I was working on a show called Runaways for Marvel. And when we were renegotiating my contract, I remember asking if anyone in Marvel Television knew anyone in Marvel Publishing. I made it clear that I wanted to write comics. And the first two assignments I got were the Falcon for Marvel proper, I guess, and then Lando Double or Nothing for the Star Wars books.
That's really interesting. So, Land of Double or Nothing was kind of one of your first comic books that you wrote?
It was my second comic book that I wrote. Yeah,
Interesting. That was a really interesting series because it was kind of earlier in the Star Wars canon reset. So, do you remember anything about that series that you particularly liked exploring? Because there was a bit more wiggle room back then.
it was. I mean, I think the difference, Donald Glover played Lando differently than Billy D. Williams played Lando. It was a younger Lando, and it was much more comedic. I almost felt like I was writing comedy in a way. It was like an adventure comedy, and it was a different tone. And I was still trying to get my legs under me as a comics writer. So it was a lot of trepidation. I had to go to the Lucasfilm offices and read the script for the movie because it was a prequel to the Solo movie. And I had to go back and do a little bit of research and do some things and figure out how I was going to incorporate my storylines into what they wanted me to do. And it was fun, but it was a great learning experience as well.
That's really interesting. So the script, so probably the film wasn't out by the time you were starting to develop
No,
that.
no, it was, I think, probably about 2 or 3 months away. This sort of was a companion to the movie.
That's really interesting. How would you say, just for those who don't know the process, the difference between writing more of an original story versus writing an adaptation, such as The Mandalorian or Ahsoka, where you're kind of going,
Yeah.
it has to match up?
Well, the hardest part about adaptations is you're trying to create a familiar experience for the reader as watching the TV show. So you have to take 60 minutes roughly of television time and crunch it into 20 pages of script, for a comic book, and still feel like you're capturing the basic movements of what the television show was. It's not easy, but it's mostly plotting, I'd say, more so than writing, because the words are already there, the actions are already there, everything's already kind of there. You just have to reconstruct it in a way that still feels fun.
That's really interesting because, again, with like other stories, you get there's a bit more wiggle room to develop your own characters and everything.
Mhm.
Have you ever snuck any Easter eggs into any of thing that you've written, like a friend's name or Um,
Yeah, I think I created a couple of droids that had my birthday in it. Somebody actually pointed that out. I had a RB-63, which is my name plus, that. So there were a lot of anytime I can get my kids or somebody in there or something, initials, a name or something, I always try. Um, but mostly in the ones that are scripted, not so much the ones that are adaptations, because the adaptations are pretty strict to
yeah.
what you already saw.
But hey, it's always fun to try to slide things in when you can.
Always, always, always. It's canon, so you got to.
A question from one of our audience members was, one of the comics that you wrote was centered on the assassin droid IG-88. Can you talk about what you're trying to bring to life to a droid and how it compares with writing humans and aliens?
Yeah, that was kind of my Pinocchio story. I wanted to create a droid. Well, I wanted to give emotions to a droid and make it feel like IG-88 not so much had feelings, but perspective and what life and death felt like and meaning and purpose. What processing that through the eyes of a droid. If you could have empathy for a droid, what would that feel like and how would it manifest? And I love that story. It's one of my favorite stories, Star Wars or anything else. Quiet little one shot, but a lot of fun for me. And just wanted to really try to create for the audience and for the droid itself an emotional experience.
It's really interesting. Another question that we had come in was, in the Inquisitors miniseries, you touched on the past of Fifth Brother when he was a Jedi during the Jedi Purge. Was this something you wanted to do going into the comic, or was it a result of just coming up with the story?
Coming up with the story, I had to find something, it's not a whole lot. The Inquisitors don't have a whole lot of history. So I needed to find things that I could use that would be familiar, I guess, canon, for lack of a better word, for what these characters had already done, and put them together in this story and make it feel like it was an experience that was coming from other experiences that the Inquisitors had already dealt with. So I scoured the earth. Yeah, I scoured this galaxy for that galaxy.
It's really interesting. The Inquisitors, it's it's really interesting because there was a book last year about Inquisitors, and now they've been doing a bit more Inquisitors content.
Yeah.
And so, how did the concept for that miniseries develop? Like
They
picking,
they the
they had
usually
it.
the Lucasfilm folks are really, really good at giving me boundaries to work within. Like they know what time period that they want the story to exist within. I have to come up with it's almost like they have a rough shape of the house and I've got to come up with the furniture and what goes inside of it. Um, but it really is more about we knew we wanted a Jedi. The Inquisitors were after a Jedi. So I had to create a Jedi and I had to create a world that they operated in, the Inquisitors operated in, and give them a mission that was close to Order 66 and make it all kind of work and fit together.
That's really interesting. Next, I would love to get into that. This is the second time that you're writing Lando because you've done Lando Double or Nothing, and
Mhm.
now you're doing Hunt for the Falcon coming up soon.
Yes.
Um, what would you like? Is there any differences in exploring this character that you were happy to explore? Because it is a slightly different time frame, and so you're
It
able to
is.
explore it more, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's really more of an older Lando and an older Han coming together. I'll say closer to the end of their um, adventures, in the movies and what we've come to know them as. So it's more of a meditative relationship and more of what we've seen each other go through life and what we'd like for, Han is going through some stuff, family stuff, midlife crisis, excuse me, kind of stuff. So it's really a thing of trying to figure out Lando helping Han figure out where he is in life right now, which is radically different from what I did in Double or Nothing.
It's really interesting because, yeah, I mean, Han has a family. He's got a lot going
Yes.
on by that point. So
Yes.
interesting. If you could say one thing about the series to encourage people to give it a try, what would you like to say?
A lot of adventure, a lot of fun, a lot of Chewie and Han, a lot of humor, a lot of what we've come to know that relationship as being with Chewie and Han. And, we're looking for the Millennium Falcon. So what's not to love?
another question we had come in from our audience was if you have ever used Wikipedia, which probably likely,
All the
um,
time. Yes.
is there one article that you would like to see completed someday? Because a lot of them are not quite there, but if you had one topic that you could pick.
That's a great question. I mean, I looked up a lot of stuff for IG-88 when I was doing that book. And, I don't know whether it was incomplete or fractured or someplace along the way, but I have nothing but stellar appreciation for Wikipedia just as an entity. I probably wouldn't be able to do these books without Wikipedia because a lot of the things there's so much information and there's so many tethers to different aspects of the Star Wars universe. Without it, I don't know what I'd do.
It's lovely to hear. We're always glad that someone is appreciating our work, and we hope to continue making that resource for
I
authors
hope you
and readers
do.
alike.
I hope you do.
I wanted to thank you so much for sitting down with us and ask if people would like to keep up with you and your future projects, where can they find you online?
At the Rodney Barnes on Instagram and Twitter, primarily. That's where I'm the most active. And as you said, the new Han Solo miniseries and a bunch of other comics probably that I shouldn't talk about that are in development. Batman Full Moon just came out. Got another Philadelphia run in me, and just a bunch of things that are happening around me.
Well, thank you so much, and would love to get in touch in the future for your future Star Wars projects. And thank you
Fantastic.
so much.
Look forward to talking to you again.